talks about representation, and of course, then we under 447. Section 6 is about outside people's roommates. This last paragraph really belongs up here with the superintendent with section 3. Because it said this is basically, if we decide to do this to you, this is what will happen. This belongs to section 3.
Yeah, because they are suspending employees possibly or whatever. I mean, it's part of the investigation. They're having to be removed. And most of the time when they're removed, they have that
Textbook warehouse?
bus lot.
We sent them to the warehouse. They tell me how to
Used to be the copy center. They make all the copies.
or the ESC file form. That's all.
They would make all the copies. So we okay on this one then?
Yeah, you just moved it to where?
I moved it to section 3 where it talks about the superintendent has the authority to suspend and reassign people. So basically, if you get reassigned, this is what's going to happen. If they place you on alternative assignment, this is the process.
Okay. That's fine.
All right. And then 10 and 11 is where we kind of wanted to share some thoughts and share some things right before we leave.
Are we going to be losing anybody at 3 o'clock?
I'm not sure. Anybody on my team that needs to leave at 3, are y'all expecting this to run deep or?
Oh, probably, but if people needed to start leaving, I thought maybe we should just do the quick confirmation of our next bargaining day before they start wandering off. Because we held August 2nd, right?
Yes, we don't know this.
We have to check on some things.
As a possible.
Is that all day yet or just?
That's right.
That's not
No, it's not pre-planning.
I said it's
No, but it's the day before.
I think we're probably gonna have to figure something out live.
That was the problem. That's
Yeah.
where we ended up in August, is because all the things in July got knocked off.
Well, I don't know, we're probably gonna have to, I don't know if we'll be able to stop it today right this second, but, I mean, I just don't wanna wait all the way till August if we're within shot. I don't know, without knowing how far off we are on 10 and 11, I don't really know where we're at. Obviously, we're not close, if we're not looking at TAs today.
Well, it depends on can we stay late, how late can we stay?
I can say like,
I flew. And of course, just like anything else, there's not a lot, but I mean, one of the main things, and I mean, I can read a little bit while you guys are thinking about it, so I have the statement. LCEA members and Lake County educators have communicated with us through surveys, text messages, emails, phone calls, and in-person conversations. Nearly 1,000 educators shared their ideas and concerns. Overwhelmingly, they have spoken about their workload and the demands of being an effective educator. The top language priority indicated on our bargaining survey was planning time and sub-coverage. The survey data drove our contract language development, and that is why we have proposed the language we have about planning days, time, sub-coverage, and intervention. It is also why we express concerns about the language proposed by the district on the student progression plan. Our educators recognize the value and need to collaborate. They know how important professional learning communities are to developing a guaranteed viable curriculum and to develop best practices for our students to be successful. We also know how important interventions are to identifying areas of need and to help students master essential standards. We also understand why it is so important for students to have a highly qualified educator in their classrooms every day. The language LCEA proposed on planning days and time, sub-coverage and intervention is not because we are anti-collaboration, anti-PLCs, anti-intervention, or anti-sub-coverage. We truly value these ideas and believe in a culture and policy shift to do do what is best for our students and our educators who truly see change in our district. And to develop a world-class public education for our students, we must develop the structures and enact policies for these concepts to truly be implemented with fidelity. This requires ample time for educators to not only collaborate to identify essential strains, intervention strategies, common assessments, and analyze student performance on assessments, and build a culture of collective responsibility, but to prepare the materials for class, make parent phone calls, attend MTSS and RTI meetings, communicate with social workers, mental health liaisons, school counselors, SROs, and administration about student mental health concerns, student behaviors, student attendance, and other areas of student needs. We need to write referrals, upload and maintain digital assignment platforms, read, respond to emails, grade assignments, give timely, adequate feedback, grade, repair, redos, and assignment corrections. There's many stories here that we kind of compiled short snippets of. We have a list here that some people have actually compiled that has 40 plus items here that are all bulleted, that are things that a teacher is supposed to be doing. And these should be done during the plan time. Well, there's no way they can get 40 plus items done during their plan time. There's no way. They would need more than even the 5 plan times to get all of these things done. Instructors are spending a lot of time at home doing things. And some of the things, like for example, a parent phone call. I mean, I didn't want to make a parent phone call on my own phone. I wanted to do it at school so they didn't know my phone number. Some are like that, some are not. Some are fine with doing it. But there's a lot of things, and some of them want to read little snippets of some of what instructors have. And we have 12 different people, just from yesterday afternoon till this morning, we had 12 different people that wrote up ideas for us, because we put it out there. And there were 12 of them that sent in all kinds of information on plan time and other things. You guys want-
Yeah, so basically, we have a couple of the stories that we're gonna read. They're just quotes from the stories that were sent to us, and they're basically just snippets of what their planning periods look like, or what's affecting their planning periods, or their ability to get the work done during the contract time. So I have one, this is from a high school teacher. Between year 1 and 2, the curriculum for AP World History was completely changed, and we were given new textbooks for world history. So I was unable to utilize my lesson plans and slides from year 1. I was the only person in the county teaching ACE European history, and our textbooks never arrived. So I had to hunt down alternative books on my own and essentially build my own curriculum from scratch. All that to say, while it was expected that I emailed and called parents during my planning time, I simply didn't have that luxury.
Mine's also from our high school teacher. I had to attend 14 meetings over the course of 2 weeks during my planning. I was told that due to the guidance counselor schedules and lack of coverage, I was required to attend during my planning period until all ELL meetings were completed. There is very little planning time left when all required meeting and required documents must be done.
I also is a high school teacher. The items we created are contemplated time, we still need time to be prepared for our students, so individual planning time is required in order to properly implement smart goals.
John, I don't think I've had a day in probably 5 to 6 years where I feel like I finished planning for all the things I wanted to do during that time. I think the constant sense that I'm finished is really discouraging, especially when I'm teaching kids who struggle as much as they do academically. I have a couple now about time outside of contract. So this is a high school teacher. I typically put in around 20 to 25 hours of my own off-contract time. Without this, there is no way I could have taught my courses effectively.
This is from an elementary teacher. Most days I come in before contract time so I can make copies, prepare for the day, fill out forms, or other small tasks.
This is from a high school teacher. After school work or after contract hours, calling parents, emailing parents, grading, purchasing items for labs, online work tracking, and following up with students that are behind consistent or are consistently absent. At least 2 hours per school day. On weekends, around 5 hours. Lesson plans, materials needed to teach with, and entering everything into the classroom.
This is for a reading teacher, doesn't say a lot.
Especially this past year, I felt I wasn't servicing the students for what they really needed me to. As students from other teachers, they didn't know exactly where many were struggling. If I had my own students, I could hold small groups and work on their strengths and work on math or reading with them. And I see that they're struggling with the standard year working at that time. I believe having the students staying with the roster teachers class is the best for students.
So I have two left. One is elementary about planning time. Although we're given 45 minutes each day for planning, we really only get maybe 35. Elementary teachers are required to walk their students to enrichment class and also pick them up, which severely can impact the time for planning due to enrichment teachers not opening their doors until just at that moment. And the last one is on mentoring, and this is from a high school teacher. Many teachers would not have been successful or effective without the unpaid and unofficial mentoring given by myself or a limited few others I've worked with throughout the year.
And if we truly mutually agree that change is needed to respond to the diverse needs and challenges to prepare our students over the ever-changing job market, then we need to really think about our policies and contract language. Whether this is through collective bargaining or teacher advisory committees or joint committees, we will need to reevaluate our current structures and policies and produce some innovative solutions to give teachers the appropriate time and working conditions to meet the workload demands of this culture shift. We are already experiencing unprecedented teacher turnover and burnout. If we want to attract and retain highly qualified educators, we will need to have the systems in place that encourage them to come to and stay in Lake County. We also know that teachers cannot be effective for students if they do not have the support and proper systems in place and have adequate time for student demands. We understand the reasoning behind your big ask, distribution of students during intervention. However, in order for this to be possible, our big ask is that we address the workload concerns by either reducing the workload or finding more time during the contract day to meet the demands of the profession. Thank you for your time and for hearing our educator voices. Let's work together to build the world-class public education our Lake County students deserve. And that's just something to think about, whether we stay for a little bit longer and look at some of the language in 10 and 11, or we break and come back later. That's totally, but we wanted to at least give you some ideas as to where some of the teachers are coming from and why they feel that they are so overworked. And as it says, burnt out, they're overwhelmed, they're leaving. We have people leaving that, and even retiring after 15, 16 years. They weren't going to, but they did because they're, lack of a better word, they're over it. And I don't know how we're going to continue to keep keeping these people because, and I'm going to say the new teachers too, that come in, they think it's wonderful because, ooh, I'm going to make, let's say it's ratified. Let's say it's ratified. They get, oh, wonderful, I'm going to get 48.5. How long do they stay? We have, that I know of, we have 40 people last year that were here less than 4 months. How much money did we spend for somebody that was here less than 4 months? A lot of people think teaching world, oh, it's wonderful, and I'm going to make this, and I'm going to be able to do all this kind of stuff, but they end up leaving. Many of them leave, and many of them leave after 1, 2, 3 years. They're gone. They can't handle it. So, just some things to think about. We also have some calendars and thinking about some of the intervention things, thinking about the plan times, things like that, that we can bring in at the time when we are actually talking about some of the items and some of the language.
I think, first of all, there's no way in this room or through this negotiation or this contract we're going to apply with the teacher. I think we understand how difficult it is to be a teacher, for as long as it's been a profession, but especially at its height now, right? I think step one is fair compensation. And I think we've shown that's going to be step one in retaining folks and keeping them in the profession. And I think we've proposed a more enhanced proposal for that to occur. And so I think that's step one. without seeing, it sounds like to me you don't agree with any of it.
No, not all, I mean, it's, we have many things that we're basically saying, yes, that's fine, no problem.
But the rosters is a sticking point, you don't want to.
The
rosters.
plan time and intervention is very, very difficult because they have, as you've heard, I mean, there's too many things that they're doing already. And I know it is stated that intervention, you know, it's not graded, you don't have lessons, you don't have different things like that. But think about it. Is that really true? I mean, do they really not think about something that's happening? For example, the elementary teacher that said something about they really didn't truly understand the student that came to her because that student was not her student. So she was feeling bad because she didn't know that student enough to help them with that reading. And many teachers feel that way. So how am I helping that student if I don't know them well enough? Which means then I'm going to have to go look and figure out what that student needs, which does take time, whether it's not a lesson plan or whether it's something else. But again, they're still looking at something else that is taking time. And this is an intervention period in that case.
And I understand all of that. Somebody said something to me yesterday pretty well, you know, the mentality of the school teacher versus the classroom. And I think as they do the collaborative planning and we're only the kids in our school, I get it, it's difficult, but if the kids are moving and you've got an expert, I'm not buying it that this kid's a stranger, I can't help it. That's going to be difficult, right? I get all the stuff you're saying, but that's going to be difficult to grasp. They're our kids, and I get there's a core group.
They didn't say they couldn't help
I get
us,
that
it would
there's a
take
core
time
group
to
that
take
you're
time.
responsible for. But
It would take time, and that's what they're saying. It's like to truly understand and help the student, because I have to kind of get a little bit of knowledge about what the student needs, and it's going to take time, and then I'm going to have to go back and look at something and say, okay, this child needs this, and I'm helping them now today. So again, it's things that you're doing and looking back on and trying to help the student, because you will help the student.
I think that's where the collaborative time together though comes into play, is collaborating to help the kids. And I guess it's a shifting mindset and it's a shifting culture, and that's what I'm asking for, that language is to uncuff us so we can start that process along with improving greatly the conversation of our teachers. So it's probably going to be a waste of time for us to sit here and just circulate this around. If I just don't want to. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I understand everything that you guys.
Can we just take a quick break and look at this stuff that we think we have ready for TA and caucus?
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea right now, because I've got some stuff printed, and I think I just want you guys to kind of comb through it a little bit just to make sure it's right.
Yeah.
And because we did a lot of work, so let's let it on a high note.
No, I agree, but here's what I'm gonna tell you though, I just wanna be forward. We can say what's ready for TA, but we didn't ask for a whole lot of language, we asked for a bit. I get it, the bit's heavy, it's the heaviest bit, right? But we give it where we can in language through all the things you guys proposed, and we give it tremendously when it comes to conversation. So we can check and compare those things, but to me, from a TA standpoint, I won't be rated TA until we're rated TA. So if you want a break, okay. Caucus at 3:01.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back from break. Caucus is 3:44 p.m.
So we have 10 up and 11. So the thought process that we had was that was working so well doing a quick group edit. We thought if we went through and started saying what we can agree on and what needs to return to traditional language, we'll be able to narrow it down to what the actual differences are. Because there's a lot of colors here, but I don't think that many of them are still doing anything to the contract language. So this is Article 10. And because it's green, you guys agreed to that change So then this is a good to go change.
That's a good to go.
Yeah.
So in section 2, we had said strike this, you guys had said leave it, and our notes said we were going to accept that, return to status quo. Not wrong,
Keep losing
Yeah.
this record, yeah.
it's plugged in all the way.
Okay, so like every time you move.
Just don't move.
It's freezing.
Alright. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna fit it between the tables, maybe then it's not. Check. Okay. Alright, so, I don't know what's going on.
You have copies of this?
No, the printer.
The copies,
just-
yes.
Maybe turn it off and turn it on. Kathy, that's all it is.
Yeah, we may have to, or that doesn't work.
I think the connection that was on the floor just got stepped on. It's loose. Alright, so we had said within 10 work days, Right.
So we will go back in.
just cut off here.
Yeah.
Keep going, back.
We'll look at it when it comes back again.
So,
That's weird.
What's
so,
it take to come up?
yes, so we're okay with putting that back.
The only thing that we were keeping was within the principal's authority.
Correct.
Put that good again?
I'm hearing it. Basically, in that section, we were putting it back, we're keeping in the, because you said within the principal's authority, and I know we discussed, one of the things, it's coming back, one of the things we kind of discussed was the fact that, teachers could ask the principal for the money and see if there was money somewhere, in that case. Like, for example, we had the statement there below about the non-load area and trying to get the state funding, and there was a discussion about the fact that they could ask, and maybe the principal could come up with, you know, something, $50, $100, something, but at least they could ask them at that point if there was something available. So we had that discussion. So to make sure that we tell educators that they can ask, and that means that the sentence there at the bottom.
Right.
Away.
I don't know what's going on.
And definitely, if you've got some folks that are not qualifying for the, qualifying
The,
for
lead
lead,
money.
then yes, they need to talk with the principals, and we run into significant roadblocks, and not working some of that.
Right.
Or at least way out, way
Right.
out.
As I say, because sometimes, especially like if they're new teachers, but yet if they're a coach, whatever, you know, sometimes they, you know, they may have some monies that they could get or something. Okay, so, and then that would go away too, yeah. And then the materials,
So we're striking E in that original language.
yeah, that was. Each school may available teachers accessible process for preparing instructional materials.
And we're just striking needed. Nature.
And then we're changing security to security, staff, personnel.
Security staff, personal effects.
Yes.
Did it work when I turned my screen back on?
Yeah, you're
Yes.
doing good.
All right, I think my computer, when things are plugged into my computer, it sucks too much power, it shuts down.
And then
All those are good, all
Yes.
those changes are good. See, I thought if we'd start taking out the colors, people would see there's really not that much left to do.
Yeah.
And then where applicable, they still wanted bottom page one. Yeah, we're practically.
Right, they agreed to our strike, therefore those words
And
will not be
those-
struck, correct?
Okay, so then,
Did I read your notes right?
Yes.
You guys had marked those green,
Yeah.
that you were okay with us
yes, they
striking.
were okay with that.
And then on to section 4.
Section 4, you need to make sure you take out the inlet.
I can't take it out, I just have to strike it.
Yeah.
It's struck, so.
Right. I'll take it out after we get
Yeah.
the final.
And then 5.
So let's take out each individual teacher, because the boards can't handle it. Return to this, but the process is that they are really in the middle of doing all the research to upgrade all the phone systems anyway.
Correct. We're trying to figure it out.
So we left off FERPA,
Yeah.
but we did ensure that schools are having places for people to make phone calls.
Correct.
And then the next paragraph.
Edit, except in case of emergency.
And then the section that was moved, okay with.
Now we're all the way down to 11.
Teachers to be notified in writing of attendance while teaching and supplemental assignments. And they didn't want the 30 days
And that's supposed to be prior to post plan.
prior to post-planning. And we also discussed that we could meet with them or whatever, like February, March, whatever, we could meet with HR to kind of get and make sure that the timeline is.
And once I feel like we just got where we give the open document to principals, and it's labeled tentative is the name of the document on timeline. So we can share, once we feel solid, it gets a little weird when we're closing schools. Like next year, we're closing another school.
Correct.
But we worked through that process really well last time, we worked through it again this time, so now that timeline can be a little goofy. Next year, again, we'll be cramming it in and starting early.
Right, okay.
And within that, we'll also be encouraging, if, as soon as principals can let them know what assignments are, knowing that anything can change, we'll be encouraging that.
Okay. That was 11. And then 12. Just clarifying that teacher planning days are during then the whole school year, and hoping that we could get make sure that the teachers have some plan time and enough plan time during pre-plan, and post-plan, and during the school year, because I know that's somewhere else in the work days, that's there. But sometimes we have some administrators that take up quite a bit of time during pre-plan, so hopefully we can have some conversations around the fact that administrators should still be holding to the 1/2 of the day.
So what, in talking with some principals and one on the team, a lot of them they do have large chunks available in pre-plan for people that do things. And what I commit is that if we have some that are just sucking up all of pre-planning, then we're gonna work, with the superintendent and I, the regional executive directors, we're gonna work with principals to make sure that they're giving teachers some uninterrupted time in large chunks during pre-planning rather than, because they hit you for a half day on every day, I mean, you can't get
You can't get anything done, which is what the language was around, of course, at that point. So that would be,
But it's gonna be on our building reps and our members to let us know when the schedule is so chewed up that they can't get anything done. So that we can take it to HR and we can get it sorted.
because you need to have, at least a couple hour chunk in order to get something done in the classroom. 13, you were okay with visits to a teacher's classroom. And keep in the other authorized personnel.
So no returns to original language. Those are no.
Returns to original, yes, unless we could try to do, it says 24 hours notification to the teacher will be given. Is there any way we can get rid of the when possible? I mean, I think they're already doing it for the 24 hours. Most of these are the large events, I call them large events,
Instructional
but
reviews.
the instructional reviews and things like that, and I'm pretty sure that they always know in advance, so the when possible doesn't really apply, I don't think.
It says 3 or more. You gotta really know when 3 or more.
I mean, you have to know when 3 or more people are gonna be coming in the room, I think.
Hang on one second.
Well, I think some of the,
Yeah, that was one.
can I just say something there about the 3 or more? Sometimes, like, at some schools, when we go to one, does that include the principals too, or is that just like outside? I think that's where we heard something like, there's just too many people here. Does that include administrators and district people, or?
It says district teams of 3 or more.
Right, so that does, then that, so it could be a principal and 3 people from the district.
That's 3 or more.
Okay, well, that's, I think,
And basically, all it's saying is saying that you're giving the teacher at least 24-hour notice, which is the same as giving the teacher, when a parent wants to come in, you're supposed to give the teacher 24 hours notice.
So my thing is, when I put out a week at a glance on Sunday, and we have instructional reviews on Tuesday, I've given my 24-hour notice.
Yes.
Because I haven't said,
Yes.
because I don't know which classrooms we're gonna visit anyway. And
Yes.
when we do visit, I don't want all the
But they-
bullshit.
that's their notification.
I want you to do what you normally will do,
That's their notification.
okay?
So, I mean, what you wind up with is probably a lot of precautionary communication. And cause I won't freak people out all the time either. And then the other piece of this I play is, say, I've got regional executive director, Ms. Cockcroft, and the superintendent want to go walk campuses and just check things out. I mean, they can hear clipboard, they're not doing anything. But if they're wanting to go do some of that and they haven't given 24 hours notice, I think that's where they're going to have a problem. You get relinquishing their ability to go see some classrooms, not on the moment's notice, not to evaluate or
But this is only saying 3 or more. If the superintendent and, well, now I guess, or one of the region people. So if superintendent and a region person wanted to come to that school,
Yeah.
that's only 2 people.
I got you.
That's, I mean, all this is saying is 3 or more people.
I don't want to get, so let's say, like instructional review stuff, that involves non-administrative people. If you got somebody in the classroom, or you got an ESC person doing an evaluation, if there's some overlap, I just don't want there to be a big dust up over nitpicking, because an instance occurred.
Most of the time, you're only gonna have, you wouldn't have more than 2 or 3 people coming in your classroom.
All right, can we?
For something like that, would
Can
there
I,
be?
can I keep that in mind when we roll through this before we leave it? I mean,
Highlight it so we can make sure we can see it.
Yeah, and then this one, maybe take out that. And then section 15, regular posting grades should occur within 1 week of the assignment assessment. Let's go back to that's what they want. D, we were changing because it's called a student progression plan now. So that was okay.
I think DOE does that just so people don't change their books.
16,
It's all original.
yes, it's all original, but this is kind of from the calendar, from the grading calendar, and this is actually what they do. Reporting of final grades at the conclusion of each quarter marking period will be due 5 work days after the close of the quarter. Final grades for seniors will be set prior to graduation. So maybe we could do just that portion, because that is what we do in the calendar. So basically it's saying what is on the calendar.
Yeah, so I don't see how we can, I mean, it's still,
So they really aren't in conflicts. The first sentence says grades cannot be required before the close of the second workday. So it gives you a window, can't be forced to do it now. And then our part says, but it can't be any later than that. But the problem is it's a lot of really bad sentences.
the thing is, a grading calendar in detail, I don't know, just like with any calendar, depending on how days and years fall and how there might be restrictions that dictate changes in this. While it might be one way this year, it might be another way another year. And I don't want to cause conflicts that are unintended consequences. I mean, I guess I did. What is it that are you people having trouble getting grades in on the timeline that's required?
No,
Then why
no,
would
we were
change?
just trying to figure out, because the first sentence that's in there was when we were still doing the exams and so forth. So we don't do the exams anymore. So the first period, the first sentence, that's what that has to do with, because the conclusion of the first and third marking period, which were the semesters, will not require prior to the close of the second workday following said period. That was the whole language.
I don't want to hang us up on this, and without talking to people that are running Skyward and posting grades in a timely fashion and getting into IT, if we're not having a problem getting grades done, and I don't want to change anything at this time for that.
Yeah, we were just trying to put in some language here that had to do with grading, because it make it relevant, because the first and third, we don't do those semester things anymore. So it's like just trying to make it, and this is what they do. Even if you put in only that first sentence, the reporting of final grades at the conclusion of each quarter marking period when we do 5 work days after the close of the quarter.
Is that any different than,
Maybe just codifying what we're already doing.
Right.
I know that the last, okay, for instance, third 9 weeks this past year was on March 10th. Grades had to be put in by March 24th, but you had spring break in there. So you get into these things that would not meet the letter of the law, because you have the end of the things, then you have spring break in there, and others. Sometimes at the end of school, the fourth 9 weeks was a little bit different.
Yeah, 4 to 9 weeks is always.
But that was third 9 weeks would not meet the letter of that language right there. It's actually 14 days.
That's why it's 5 work days. That language is 5
It's
work
like
days.
work days.
So I think it was 5 work.
Thursday, and
But a teacher workday, yeah, it was a teacher workday before spring break.
Okay, so
And then that was the 5, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
That was 5 days. So that would have been the 5 work days. It would have been the 18th, would have been the 11th as a work day. And then the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. That's 5 work days.
Yes.
So it's always the 5 work days.
It doesn't appear like they do anything different on second language.
And I think it's all the same, first, third, and first, second, third. Fourth language, we know that, I mean, you know, you can't leave until you sign off on everything, so you can't leave until it's done and you have all the grades. Now, you know, we don't have to have the seniors in here, I guess, but, I mean, it's just saying that the seniors, that it's a little different for them. So-
There's other factors, I don't wanna mess with it.
Yeah, and we can,
And if this is something,
it's not a big deal, but it's just stating.
it's not like Article 10 is not gonna be opened up again. But I just wanna
And
make sure that
then-
grades are.
Yeah, and like I said, this is what teachers do. The next page, page 5, you agreed with changing and just putting the research at the top of the page, and then the rookie teacher of the year on section 18. And then, section 19, is the part about the substituting, where you were trying, and you were saying that you, the county was looking into some other ideas of hopefully helping with the substituting, which will also help with this area. But just to reiterate again, that teachers can say no, if they are busy doing something else, because they could be doing an MTSS or whatever. So they can actually say no. We do have to, so basically it goes back to the original language.
That is correct, they can say no, and we did put that in language.
So, yeah, so with that, what's wrong with this first sentence? Just stating it explicitly that you can be requested but not required to substitute or give up your plan.
So you're saying that,
The first sentence there that is in red, when a substitute is not available, a teacher may be requested but not required to substitute during his or her planning time for another teacher or absorb an absent college students into their classroom.
Just more direct than the next.
I feel like it, because that we could run into situations where it has to happen. And that's where, I mean, if we run into a situation where all of a sudden it's like, okay, this person's saying absolutely not, I've already got my administrator covering for 2 teachers that called in, I've got my non-load variant covering for people. I mean, at what point, what do? You know, we're gonna send them in the cafeteria, that doesn't make sense. So I just don't, I don't want to go stronger than, it's already by mutual agreement, they got to agree to it. So I just don't want to go,
Which negates what you just said. Can't make somebody give up their time or absorb.
but it already says that, so why would we need to, it's by mutual agreement. So,
I'm just saying, it's just hard for annual contract teachers to say no, because they know if they continue to say no, because they're busy doing something else, then
but it's
I may
still
not
got the
get-
same thing.
I know,
By
I'm
mutual
just
agreement or-
saying, it's difficult for them to say no,
I got you.
because they fear for their job.
Well, we need to,
Okay, then it goes to page 8, where we moved a section, so,
Just one more thing there, but we did have a discussion about this release time. What we've heard from people is that I volunteered to do this, I got release time, but then I was never able to use it. We're going to be surveying people and asking them if they've been denied using release time. And if it comes back that people are being denied to use release time, we're going to be having probably gonna see this language back with money attached to say, now they're gonna have to pay money out of their budget to do this to people. But hopefully your new subbing system solves some of this.
Understood, and here's what, because I do feel like large and beyond, my principals, colleagues they're allowing people time for release time, but what I don't want happening is I've got principals out there that are not given any opportunity whatsoever, because opportunities we acknowledge are limited as it is, right? So we've got, if there's a work day, some people need to use some release time, there's some available windows there, right? Or if for some reason a Wednesday is not every Wednesday is occupied, then they need to be provided those types of opportunities. And I do think there's some that provide some, they might carve some out different ways I'm not aware of. But, so, if you do, as you're surveying, as you find out, we find those anomalies and those high points where you've got administrators that are not allowed for that, I do want to know. And that way, the superintendent, myself, or regional executive director can sit and talk to those principals and kind of re-educate them on the vision and what we need to do for teachers. So
Because they have,
definitely make
yes,
sure-
that everybody has a laptop and they're willing and able to work at home also, but.
So that leaves us with section 13 with one possible. Right now. Just one question left on Article 10, it seems.
Yeah, because we have to put the word 33 back in. Yeah, very much. We moved the one section, and we moved two sections somewhere else, and then we'll put safety, we have to put it back in, because they wanted to put which one?
What section are you talking about? Okay, I see what happened. There's a page break that got stuck in here, and things disappear. Got it.
So section 2 is no.
We don't do it very often.
Come on in.
I think, we can take that.
And if I do ask,
When possible.
When possible.
And then we just go back to the original with the grading, keep it the way it is
Yes.
on section 16.
Or come out the,
Section when grades are due, whatever. just
yeah, I'm
the way it
super,
was
I'm
before.
not intending consequence at this time, and we,
I think we had a pretty good meeting of the minds on this one. We just need to clean it up so that we can see it.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but looking at all those different colors makes my eyes dance.
it does, it was just the only way I
I
can.
know it's a tracking thing, but it's just like, oh. But really, like, we propose things that are bold underlined. If they're red, they need to be removed. So if we take out the red and see what we have left, I think it makes it easier to look at. So we have agendas, minutes, includes team leaders. Is there anything missing?
You have to take out that open meeting with agendas published.
I take those out. I took out all the red. No, red's gone. You're looking at your paper. Your paper doesn't reflect what's on the screen. This is what it would look like going over TA for ratification. Show strikes and others. Although this language was not in the original, was it?
It was.
But it's bold.
They were proposing this, right?
Yeah, we were proposing striking that because we were agreeing to the, you guys recommended department heads and team leaders.
Yay, okay.
Because the thought is you've got some non-load bearing that has some department heads, and then you've also got, and they're gonna include representatives prior to those people.
Correct. According to the notes.
Think so? That look okay then to you? I think that's what we agreed to. Then you put out the 14.
This was new and it needs to go away. This is return to status quo. But this
Yeah.
other stuff doesn't make
It
sense.
probably needs to be that, the plans too needs to be struck with the deal with emergency situations. I think that was the reorder.
Plans for student coverage in the event of an emergency situation. Such plans will use faculty developed equitable rotation procedures involving use of all staff with teaching certifications, striving not to overutilize same teachers, and then talking about the planning period. This goes. And all the strikes are returned. I can see it all together. It's a very complicated sentence when you have all those strikes and ends to try to track. So start time and end time, we took out the timeline. And now it looks like indeed, the changes that are there were all approved, however, the however is struck, so, but it's not listed in green, so I don't know if that one's supposed to be there or not there.
I think
it just says a principal.
yeah, with the strike is okay, a principal. And that we were just leaving in its original home and not in this, because of the first name.
understand COVID and the issues, but the teachers need their time before and after the students. And then we would have like a duty schedule, which is why we have the committees. They would have a duty schedule that they would, for the supervision of the students at that time, that they would only maybe have, a week at a time of duty versus every day of having kids in their classroom.
That is the intent of that, and those meetings will be their available time to provide input. And so that would absolutely be what the intent there is. And if we run into issues with it, and we want pre-COVID existence, right? So, and I've heard the superintendent say it numerous times, and where we had some more egregious circumstances during the year, this year we were like, no, it's okay to let visitors back in. We can have volunteers again, because some people, just because their circumstances are a little different, were slow to have that come back. So same thing with this. Get back on those equitable rotation schedules, get back on the things that need to be happening. So at least, the before and after times are improved again, back to some pre-COVID conditions. So you got.
I think at elementary level, especially because of the holding tanks, that we didn't have the students so close together. But now that we're able to, I know I would certainly like to go back.
And I would hope that all of them would want to go back. I don't think they all are, which is why I wanted to make sure that I said that, to where that in that case, then yes, it is said, and so hopefully when I hear those things, then I can I'll contact Chad and just say, hey, so-and-so school is, they're going back to they're still having, the morning and afternoon, and because we were hearing it, we were going to the work sites and we'd stay there, and it's every day. You had 15, 20 minutes, especially in an elementary school. You had all these buses, first call for bus this and this and this and this, and then you have second call for this. You had 15, 20 minutes of all you had was buses being listed at all times. Like, oh my gosh. It's like,
once we get to the point of agreement and I'm updating our principals and administrators on, what the new language is, we will reemphasize that to make sure, look, this doesn't need to be sitting dog and pony. You need to truly listen to, in this leadership committee, to what those rotation schedules look like, and let's get back to honoring what they look like and what's reasonable.
So it's one below, so what is it, A1, it looks like there's a may that becomes a will, and it's had a meeting because we're allergic to articles.
yes.
Yep, it worked on your paper.
Yes, that's it. And that takes out, and that's out. So then
We have capital lowercase t for the.
Can we go back before we go further with the other section? Section 1. E, which you probably already took out. Yeah, the site-based safety. We understand the district wanted the district side, but maybe this is more the idea of things happening just at the school, which wouldn't be like a status thing. How would they work with something that this was saying? Would they still do it in that site-based?
Well, what we have, we
Committees?
guaranteed them to participate, to be a guaranteed member in that joint leadership committee. So that's where they would voice in that joint leadership committee. And if everybody knows who that site safety rep is, that's who they need to talk to.
So they would do some of these things that we mentioned in here, and they would just talk about it in that
Yes.
committee, or they might recommend some sort of things that might need done, health or, the accidents, different things, but.
Correct. And I can tell you, Mr. Royer would be excited if he had more participation.
That's someone might read his newsletter.
Yeah. safety, well, the separate safety committee is where they would address those things.
These things would be addressed there.
Yeah, but if that representative will be in the leadership committee, so if something comes up there, they can take it
They
back.
can take it back to the leadership committee.
Became a liaison at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we're on section 3, wonderful section of planning period. Again, is there any way that we can, we believe that teachers want to plan together. It's just, I mean, it makes things easier for teachers. So even if it's not in writing, saying that the administrator says, okay, I want you to plan on Tuesdays. I mean, the teacher can make up, teachers should be able to make up their time so that they have plan time, that they plan collaboratively, and some of them even do more than one day. But it's up to them on the days and what they do so that they have plan times every day.
I think some.
How do we do that?
There's gonna be some overlap, right? I think the key is, that I hear what you guys are saying on, I know teachers need some individual plan time. And I thought we got some of that there, but what I need to be able to keep an eye out for is it's the same as like the release time type thing. When if we've got principals or administrators, APs, or even district folks that are overdoing it or just bullying into time for teachers, then we need to know about it and we need to adjust it and make sure that adjustments are happening. I feel like if we're truly going to be in this process together, we're truly going to move forward, then we're going to have some really good language for this next year that we work on together to a new reality. But so I can definitely give some commitment that we're going to improve, especially where egregious things are happening where teachers aren't getting their plan time.
And that's the only thing that teachers need a plan time every day.
Yeah.
Now, whether they want to plan every day with the team, that's up to them. But they need some time to plan and get things done that they need to be doing. We understand, yes, IEPs, MTSs, those things, yes, it's for your students. But again, that's another area that, again, your tested areas like English and math, they're always taken for those items. And so it becomes a burden onto some teachers, not every teacher. So again, I don't know whether there's something that we could look at to say, parent conferences are every teacher. That's every teacher. MTSs can be all of them. But if you have, like ESE students in an elementary, let's say, they should be equitable among everybody so that, and in some cases they weren't. We had one teacher, said, I had like 12, IEP kids and my neighbor over here only had 2. So that's not an equitable thing either. So, it needs to be a little bit more to where not a person is burdened just because they're a more experienced teacher or they also have that ESE degree or, see what I'm saying? So that
If they've got.
so that they're not overwhelmed with some of these things because again, as some of them have said, I had 2 weeks that I missed all my plan periods because I had to do IEPs and 504s and MTSSs and, your ELLs and everybody else. So there needs to be some equitability here so that we can get some more time for some of these teachers that, and I know we're gonna work through some of the things with the teacher committee. Hopefully we're gonna work on some things that will help possibly, discipline and different things. But hopefully we can come to a consensus to where teachers need the plan time.
I think we understand we can't have the best of all worlds, right? And we do have to have that, and that's what we're gonna work on our administrators to have, is that look through that lens of the people that have that, by nature of their skill set or their load, their student caseload, or whatever you want to call it, or rosters. I mean, there needs to be some grace there. If you've got somebody that's ESC heavy, and they've got IEPs that they're constantly monitoring, they're having to scaffold more, they're having to differentiate more. I think that's kind of the point of that collaborative planning process is to help them with that and to maybe redistribute some of the load. And I think that's what we're going to be encouraging. Okay, well, if something was scheduled a little wonky at first, and you see there's an inequities, then we need to not be afraid to revisit that and look through a little bit different lens. So,
I know Kathy, I was just, I mean, in those kind of situations, and I know I've had some things come up before, and a teacher's had to come and say, do you realize that I've had this meeting, I've had that meeting? If we don't know, and sometimes it's nobody's fault, it's just that you've got this department scheduling something, and this department, not all the time are we aware of it. And I know I have actually canceled meetings and rescheduled them for another time because that teacher was gonna have more of her planning periods taken. So sometimes we just need to know a little bit.
well, the other piece of it is we are hitting that threshold. We need to make sure that they're submitting for what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, and I think some of that is encouraging our administrators to communicate that authentically upfront. At the beginning of the year, look, hey guys, don't be afraid to approach us with something's getting overwhelming or you're planning, don't just eat it. You know, if it's been interrupted and it's by contract, here's what.
Even a first year teacher needs to know that, like, you can still let us know.
Right. Well, and the thing about it is, like, I know a lot of people, like, they would ask us, but the bookkeeper is saying that they don't have this form, or they don't have this, they don't have that, and no, they do. So again, it's like one of those pieces that a teacher, they get frustrated because, okay, yes, I had all this time, and yes, I really am due, this week I had a plan period, so I should get my money, but then it's tracking down everything because I can't find it, or, and well, in one case, administrator didn't even know where it was. And then another case, they said go to bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper didn't know where it was, it's like, I don't have any of those forms. So they're thinking that it's a total different form that they have to fill out or something, and it's like, again, it's like trying to get, and that's why we're trying to get some of this language in that we're make it easier for people to know.
Now, we're making note that
This
direct communication needs to come from us to make sure that people have the proper knowledge and forms to give what they need, because that doesn't work.
Kathy, one thing you can think about too for high schools and stuff, when we schedule, there's a percentage you can put that falls into each teacher's classroom of ESC if you want to distribute that across so that nobody's getting a heavy load or just laying over.
Right. Well, I was thinking a couple of them, and this was more elementary. But again, it should still be equitable. It shouldn't be just because, one person, I know it's getting a little bit easier because some of the English now and things and reading and different things, but the ESC, it's like should be equitable because you have support people come in and help anyway. So you shouldn't have, 10 in one and only 2 in, in another classroom just because, but we know it happens.
All of them deserve to be teaching by design, right?
School schedules,
They corrected on that.
yes, they didn't want to have, so we took out the one,
I'm assuming
wackies.
this language needs to go away.
That,
That's what they had proposed for this year, because that's what they proposed, because they wanted teachers to have.
Just tell me what stays and goes. I can't tell because it's struck and
It's
pulled. I need to know what is staying or going.
here, that's our significant piece, and I can tell you that we're going to heavily monitor how intervention and acceleration is and involved. So I just want teachers to understand if they can make this commitment to make this calculus, that we're going to make sure nobody gets abused through the process. the goal is that, you know, it will take out some of those barriers and knowing the kids, and it will make life easier through collaborative planning. So, I mean, our goals are truly altruistic. It's not by any means trying to further burden people. Process is going to be changed, but the end result, I think, is going to make put teachers and kids in a better spot.
Well, and we just want to clarify the fact that collaborative plan, you're collaborating for your classroom and you're collaborating with things. Again, there shouldn't be a separate collaboration just because of intervention. So I'm assuming that you're using the same things that you did in your classroom, you're using everything, and nothing else should be different because of that intervention time.
There's not like, oh, collaborative plan for how y'all are going to approach each one of your classes, and collaborative plan for how intervention. No, it's all one process and one goal. There's not, the whole idea is that, you know, those 4 steps within that process, you know, becomes a new way of doing work, and everybody's life gets a little easier, and kids are student learning is going to get better. So that's the intent. And I think as you guys, intervention and acceleration time is not going to work without teacher input, and not just teacher input, but teacher involvement in how we design the process. So I think that's the intent of the superintendent and us moving forward, to make sure that you guys' voices are heard, especially in that area. I mean, it's our core of our student learning and academic focus moving forward. I mean, it's our vision. That's how much it means to us. And our vision is what needs to be everyone, all of our vision, right? A collective vision. And we can't do it if everybody's not on board. So if we do it wrong, and we're abusing people, and they're not, you know, things aren't being taken into consideration, then it's not going to work. So this would mean a tremendous amount to us.
That was original language.
Again, those were confusing. Does this sentence stay or does this sentence go? It was original language, it was struck.
It was original language, and we impressed the fact that it would stay there. And the only thing that we need to say again is the fact that if we agree to this, what do we get in return? Because there's many things in here that we've asked for that we did not get. And we're conceding all kinds of things in here. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, our people may not agree to a lot of these things, because it just seems like, you know, time is of the essence, and it's hard for teachers to get, you know, 40 plus items done when they don't have plan time to get things done. I mean, it's understandable that you want these things, but what do educators and teachers, what do they get in return for this, besides it seems like a lot more work?
Well, it's not for no reason that we're trying to get a lot more money, you know, to you guys. And I know it's hard, right? Because it's one thing, you don't want to hold one thing against another, right? I get that, but that's what we're trying to be fair. We're trying to be balanced with this stuff. We're not trying to keep a bunch of, and that's the whole point of it, intervention acceleration time, and to assist and support the students and master grade level standards. That's the goal of it. And it's not to create a whole bunch of additional planning and grading. I mean, I know we have, I know that that further down that's struck, but that's not the intent. We don't want a whole bunch more lesson planning and grading to come along with that period of time. So I think if we can strike a sentence in blue and leave the no additional planning and grading will be required for this period of time, along with adding the sentence about what it's truly for, that's what our desire is. I know it's compromised, but I think it's worthwhile, and it's what our mission is to do.
And we understand that, but I mean, again, it's just difficult to say that and I mean, like I said, yes, money is wonderful, but the biggest thing besides money was planning. The biggest thing was planning. And, you know, they're afraid that this is gonna take time because they know already that it's taking time because they still have to think about what they're doing. Even if they're reteaching something, it's still going back, oh, I already taught this, so now I have to remember again that, oh, now I gotta reteach it again during intervention or whatever. It's still something that they're having to go back and do. It's still time that they are preparing and thinking about what is happening.
Well, the hope is that that's occurring during their collaborative planning time and not, you know, at home at night. Because that's not the goal. When you guys heard that, if PLC is the culture that we want, and it's happening strictly outside of personal time and the contracted day, we're not doing it right. So you guys can hold us to that. And, you know, we can say, leave the sentence in for no additional lesson planning and grading. But if we can delete that, we're originally we talked about adding to the end of that last sentence where, and I think that's what's missing there. Instead of strike, we had struck with no additional lesson planning and grading be required for that time, but adding the second part of the sentence you guys had to the last sentence. So we'll read intervention and acceleration times to assist and support students in mastery grade level standards. And not to create additional assignments, lesson planning, or new coursework. I think that was what, but that's, I think what we arrived at was not, well, take that last sentence out, you just added, but unstrike them like you were just saying. So I just wanted to revisit that. That was where you had made that suggestion, but no additional lesson planning and grading were what we wanted to leave and not strike, but it struck them in anyway. So if you pull that last off back like you just had, leave the one that you just unstruck. And that's where we had left it. And I'm gonna be honest, this is a huge step for us. And by God, if we can't get it now, we're never gonna get it.
But, okay.
We'll just move on and talk about everything else. Like I said,
Okay.
on the other one, we left something in blue. Let's get this in blue because we probably need to chew on it a bit. And another that's bold strike.
Yeah, that was us wanting to strike that out.
What's the purpose of striking?
Because because collaborative planning is in there, and we don't want PLC to be considered a meeting. PLC is something that just is a culture that's embedded in collaborative planning and working together across the school and with everyone. So we don't want the notion of that being an additional meeting for people. That's why we wanted to strike it. Because you're gonna stop hearing principals say you got a PLC meeting today. If you're hearing that at all. Some of them are further along in the process, and if they are still saying it, let them know. But
Yeah, and we will,
That's just DOE's fault. They just came up with this stuff.
well, we can, that and, we'll have to look at the planning time and kind of see what we can look at and see if we can reword or something.
too many points of disagreement. I knew it was a lot fewer than we thought. Yeah, things get about
So, are we close enough to just stopping for the day now?
And just for a quick rundown, the ones that I thought that we were either like close on, the ones that we thought we were done with. We thought we were done with 4, 8, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 23, and 26.
I think that's correct. I think we arrived, I don't think I had questions on any more of the others. So,
And 19 was dropped.
yeah.
Was there anything else that was left hanging that we don't have?
We just have one because
One, just because we gotta make sure
we
it's.
gotta figure that out.
And I can tell you, it probably needs to, I wouldn't hold up on that, but I'll tell you, as soon as we can get figured out and in a place of comfort, we can adjust, but everybody's covered at the moment, but I understand what you guys want, and I can help you guys with that, and that's a big deal for y'all, I know that. So we can definitely, we can probably get that TA prior to a full ratification. But I feel like we're down like one sentence. I know it's a heavy sentence. That's why I brought a heavy purse to the meeting.
We'll have to, we can look at 10, 11 and kind of see and get back on a couple things and revamp next time we come together. And we can TA all of these other ones and hopefully we can come to an agreement with 10 and 11 after we kind of talk about and do.
Well, the longer we wait, the more issues we're gonna have. I mean, things are out, right? And people are already talking. And I can tell you, a lot of people are okay with working with students other than that are on the roster. So, and especially if there's big proposals on the table, and we're losing teachers every day to Orange County, and missing out on people coming here, which in turn, if we have vacancies starting the year because we're late in the game, and Orange County soaking them up because they just released a big announcement, then that's going to create additional sub-coverage that has to be, that exacerbates that problem and prevents me from being able to correct it. So I don't want to wait on one sentence. I feel like it is a compromise, but
And I
it's a
understand that.
worthwhile compromise.
And I understand, but it's also a big sentence in the fact that we know that it's still taking plan time. So is there a way then that in section 3 of 11 then, that we can take out some of this other stuff? For example, as we said, collaborative plan, teachers should be doing it anyway.
But that's not,
I mean-
we're not comfortable with that at this point.
It's like, we have to give something.
We have given something, a huge compensation.
I understand that, but there is.
And we went down from 3 nights out of the thing.
No, that's.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't do that either.
That's the
No.
Oh, I thought it was 2.
No,
But
because it said no.
what I'm telling you is, it's not our phones that are gonna be ringing off the hook very soon. It's gonna be y'all's phones that are ringing off the hook. And when they call, people that they think they can call in the past, because other people haven't been unreasonable in the past, they're gonna be like, oh, there's something good on the table,
I-
you need to go talk to your people, and it's all about not being willing, because it's not interfering on the planning time. That's what we're saying, the collaborative planning that's occurring now should be the time when it's also talking about intervention and what needs to happen for that team. And you've got a lot of teachers, I think you'd be very surprised. I get it, you got 1,000 responses to a variety of concerns and issues after a hard couple of years, right? I believe that, and I know that's authentic and it's valid. But at the same time, I don't want the tide to turn on everybody, us and including y'all, because
Either, but it-
we're exacerbating the situation. I mean, we have an opportunity to move out of some of the issues, tremendous issues we had, just by being able to get people money in their pockets and being able to fill the vacancies that were causing a lot of burdens and stress that were on the people that we have. So I would very much caution, because if we put this out until August or whenever we can get together again, because I can tell you people are leaving July, you know it gets ghost town real quick. And whatever valuable time is there is already booked for work. So I would really caution against taking it, but we have an opportunity right there in front of us.
And again, understand that, but in the fact that we also know that some of the surrounding places don't take, planning times away from them. It's not a mandatory thing that they take. Most of them do it on their own. Or when they take it, they do pay for it. So, and that's what I'm saying, is there a way then to say, okay, well, if they take the second one we get money for or something, instead of, a way to compromise somehow in here to where they feel like they've gotten something language-wise along the way. Yes, wonderful to have salary, but half of our people, they were saying, yes, money is wonderful, but we need time.
But we haven't, it's not like y'all got no other language and we disagree with all other language. You've given on some language too, granted y'all, but I could have sat in a room and came up with language that was the complete opposite to all the language y'all asked for and gone through that whole process. I could have held back a whole bunch of money and played around with money. But I want to stick to what's important, because I trust our teachers, I trust our administrators, that this is going to go in a positive direction. And that's, I want that planning to be there and the availability to be there, but some of that, I need some time for that to develop and for you guys to be able to be part of that process this year. Because if all of a sudden we've created more restrictive language, wow, we helped out what we're trying to do here, but now we've tied our other hand over here. So hopefully what will be born out of this, if we can allow for the process to happen, is that you guys have input and we have a better look and a more consistent look on what intervention is and how planning is being occupied. And maybe we will see planning evolve among teachers, but I don't think the level of confidence is there as the people that we have that are, becoming part of that culture in the schools. There needs to be a little more time for it to take hold and to truly change what's going on in the schools. I really don't want to leave here without, we got an opportunity to on all this stuff, including compensation and what's in it.
Well, if nothing else, we're gonna have to caucus, because
We probably
we're at least gonna have to
And
caucus.
we don't have C&D copy, we got paper, and then the first page of B, we only got the paper, so we didn't get an electronic copy of those. Because I'll need to start building the ratification piece.
See,
Yeah, the supplemental differential K one, you gave us a hard copy, but it's not in the emails anymore.
okay.
I need electronically the first page of the.
Return to caucus by 20 p.m.
Okay,
Coming in from the-
yeah, coming in. We still need a couple things, because we need the BC&D for the salary to have it all together to come for the TA.
We need time to just look at C&D a little bit,
Okay.
because we did have some people that asked some questions. We just need to compare to the questions that were asked, just to make sure that we've covered ourselves.
And so we were wondering if there was a way we could come back in just, a couple weeks and to finalize everything. And then, as you're saying, TA, we can make sure that, nothing else surveys, whatever, that it seems like, hopefully the consensus would be that they would be okay with the language, what we have right now as it stands. with the salaries and with the C&D, a couple questions, and we could finalize everything. And I'm not for sure whether, or if not everybody would be available, it was also suggested that maybe we could do, our side was comfortable with the fact of if we had like a small subcommittee, that if some of us could get together to finalize everything at that point. I know 11th is open, but it's only open till, because of the workshop, so that's
I'm gone that entire week.
the entire week.
I'm here next week, other than before, of course, everybody's gone, but I'm gone that entire week.
Yeah, we're usually gone that week too. I
So,
think,
How much time do you guys, because I don't want,
Well, as soon as we can see the supplement ones electronically, we're committed to having an evening meeting and Zooming. We should be able to turn that around pretty quickly. We just need to double check it, because there's a lot of pages there.
okay,
We just want to double check.
okay.
But I thought you guys were Zooming the NEA.
I can come, I can be here.
When?
We can have you the digital copy of that when we get back.
Okay.
Do maybe the 6th or 7th.
She'll email it to you as soon as we get back.
How does the 6th or the 7th look?
That'll work for me, and some of my folks might be gone, that's fine. And I think I've gotten most of their input that I'm gonna get, so if anybody can meet, they can meet. If they can't, then it's okay.
Are we talking 6 and 7, all of us, or your small group?
No.
Just a small group?
Whoever's available.
Okay.
And we'll just have to do an evening meeting before that to
Right.
make sure that we just have done a final review and make sure everything is done and good to go.
Well, if she can turn it around tonight, we can meet tomorrow.
She's on drive, and so you guys are on your own. So.
To win?
If you could do that tonight, ours,
Yeah.
we could. Yeah,
That's still a fast
You
turnaround.
can't do 6 or 7?
Yes.
What are you looking at? I think she's answered a different question.
Yeah, she says.
So y'all need to look at that, and then are y'all reaching out for a whole bunch of feedback and things? Y'all need that kind of time, or is it stuff just internal?
Just to review.
Well, but half our team is gone, so that's part of it.
Back tomorrow.
I actually have to be in Brevard tomorrow for a hearing, but you're welcome to do it without me. You guys really don't need me.
I mean, it's not, I'm hoping we don't have to rehash everything that we've gone over, right?
No, we just had we have one word in 10 that you guys wanted to talk to your people about the grades. And we're just uncomfortable.
That was IT on the,
Yeah, the IT thing.
grades.
So the Skyward.
It's the 5 days.
That might be something that might be something that needs to be, but with most of our team gone, it was hard for us to make a final decision on that one sentence, because we just kind of need to talk with everybody through it, because we're all a little torn.
It's been a long 2 weeks.
Yeah, it has, but we got a lot done, so we'll defeat out of the jaws of victory here.
And still thinking, in fact, that trying to come together and finish out this, that yes, we would be ready to, of course, try to ratify, pre-plan, and have things ready to go at that point,
So you think the 6th
calendar-wise.
available for y'all?
Yeah, so- I can try.
We were going to do it back.
It's 6 or 7, either one.
7 works, and she's driving. Or not.
I can probably do morning of 7.
So afternoon of 6, morning of 7. Should we say 2 o'clock on the 6th?
That sounds good.
Where would you like it to be? You want to be in your office?
Yeah, if we can do that, that way we have availability to take on some things.
Yeah. I put down 2 to 4. Want to start here or what time do you think? Actually, the first block out the schedule.
Well, we'll just have to, well,
Are they gonna?
Well,
yeah, I'll be gonna.
I can send to Gail what the staff, where I thought we were close, because you guys probably we just need to do a final review, making sure we haven't screwed anything up.
Yeah.
So we can change the dates and make it pretty, but I can send you whatever I have in my TA folder that I think is close. Then we're just left with 10 and 11 that still need to be dealt with, and B, C, and D. That's what I got. And we pushed recognition clause off to figure out later on.
Later
And we've
on.
got MOUs